I'm sick of watching Caitlin getting attacked. If the league doesn't step up and protect her, things are going to get ugly real fast.
For weeks, the WNBA's theme song was the same brutal rhythm. Caitlin Clark getting hacked, bumped, hip-checked, and slammed while league officials sat in silence, sucking in air and saying zilch. Fans erupted online. Studio panels offered polite shrugs and moved on. The signal couldn't be louder. Figure it out yourself, rookie. Then, out of nowhere, boom, the silence exploded. Not because the WNBA finally acted, but because the loudest voices in basketball history jumped in. Steph, LeBron, Luka, over 6 NBA All-Stars in total. This wasn't some sanitized, PR-polished support. It was pure, boiling frustration hurled across the hoops world. A thunderclap of honesty that echoed from coast to coast. Normally, NBA stars keep their compliments in-house. A retweet here, a post-game quote there, and it's back to business. But Pascal Siakam broke tradition, live on air. Asked the softest question imaginable: who's getting the most love in basketball? He skipped every NBA name and lit the fuse. Honestly, it's Caitlin Clark. The love around her is ridiculous. Sit with that for a second.
Oh man, Caitlin she's a beast, man. Like, and they love her. So I'll probably say Caitlin Clark. I love Tyrese, but she's another level in terms of just the love that she has.
He didn't stack her up against that other NBA rookies. He compared her to Tyrese Halliburton, his own all-star point guard teammate, and still gave her the crown. That's not a favor, that's facts. Clark has smashed through the invisible barrier that used to divide their league from the league, and Siakam just signed her visa. Obi Toppin isn't the type to drop headline soundbites. His game speaks in dunks, not deep takes, which is exactly why his response hits different. No filters, no rehearsed lines, just wide-eyed, genuine respect.
Yeah, Caitlin's amazing. Super amazing. She's a great player. Having her be courtside and watching our games is awesome. We see the excitement that she has on the sides, but just like she's doing that, we do the same. Like when they're playing, like it's so much. It's a joy to watch.
That's parody at its rawest. No pecking order, no women's basketball asterisk, just hoopers seeing hoopers. When mid-tier NBA players speak like that, it's clear the culture has already shifted beneath the court. Sharing a city in Indianapolis gives Halliburton a front-row seat to the whirlwind surrounding Clark. He watches the swarm of autograph hounds, the blinding flashes, the constant noise, and her stone-cold poise through it all. Look, he told reporters, there's Bron, Steph, Jokic, and Caitlin. She's top 5 most famous in the sport, period.
She's, I think for me, getting to actually spend time around her, be around her, get to know her personally, she's just an amazing person, an amazing player. She deals with a lot. There's a lot of rhetoric behind her that she really has no control over, and I think that the way she handles that is just amazing. Like, I think when it comes to the game of basketball, like, she's probably top 5 most famous people that are playing right now, just in general. That includes our league as well.
He wasn't being dramatic. TikTok, ESPN, airport terminals, morning talk shows, pick a screen, she's there. Halliburton's empathy says it all. He's lived the weight of being an NBA franchise cornerstone, and still, he thinks she's carrying the heavier load. That kind of perspective hits deeper than any highlight reel. When LeBron speaks, entire media ecosystems shift course. He could have played it safe with a casual nod. Instead, he zoomed out to the big picture. She's drawing attention. They're flying private now. Let's celebrate that. Translation: Clark's not just playing. She's fast-tracking structural change that's been 27 years in the making.
Because everybody is looking for you to say anything, and they're gonna splice it and cut it and make it a negative thing. And I think for her, the one thing that I love that she's bringing to her sport, more people want to watch. More people want to tune in. I saw for the first time that they had a chartered plane for the first time in their league history. They flew private. That should be celebrated in his own right.
LeBron's seen this story before, because he was the story in 2003. He knows what it means to pull an entire industry into a brighter, richer future. His praise didn't just sound respectful, it sounded personal, even protective. The message between the lines was clear. Don't fumble this league. Guard your golden ticket. Ask a pure shooter how he salutes another, and the answer's simple. Lace him up. Trae Young, a guy who lives for logo threes, even admitted he'd need extra reps to keep up with Clark in a televised shootout. The stat they both own, only 2 college players ever to lead the nation in points and assists, connects them for life.
You were hype about Steph and Sabrina. I know that you have spoken about Caitlin Clark. You're a big Caitlin Clark fan.
Oh, yeah.
She, of course, is an excellent shooter. Would you ever do like a Caitlin Trae 3-point contest at All-Star?
Of course I would. I've gotten to talk to her too throughout her college years. We're the only 2 people that ever led college in points and assists. That's a crazy stat. I'd have to definitely practice a lot more than I have for these previous 3-point competitions. Nah, I'd be ready for sure. I'd do it.
Young's lighthearted challenge wasn't just cute banter. It was a peer-to-peer nod that Clark's form, rhythm, and confidence deserved the same neon spotlight as his. Fans would line up for that showdown, and the brands are already circling. Paul George is that rare star who can zoom out without sounding like a lecture. His takes slice through the noise. Look, vets spent years battling in half-filled arenas. Then, a rookie shows up and becomes the headline. It's natural some folks might feel some type of way. He wasn't excusing the hits.
You gotta put it in perspective, right? These girls have been grinding to grow the game of basketball in the WNBA. They've been grinding to grow the sport to the world, the viewerships. They've been grinding for all of this. And then you have this girl that comes along from college and is an instant change. She's handed pretty much being the face of the league. There's going to be girls that are offended by that.
He was breaking down the human pushback that comes with sudden shifts. In just 3 sentences, he celebrated Clark's rocket ascent while giving credit to the trailblazers who paved the road she's now blazing down. That nuance is why his words echoed across podcasts for a full news cycle. A reporter lobbed Luka Doncic a softball. Who's your favorite women's player?
Who's your favorite women's basketball player?
Caitlin Clark.
Really?
Yeah.
You don't like Paige Buchers?
No, she's okay. I didn't see her playing in the women's NBA. So.
Luka didn't hesitate. Caitlin Clark. No qualifiers, no soft landings. For a guy whose own rise from Euro prodigy to NBA star bent time and expectations, that kind of direct answer spoke volumes. He measured her by the toughest standard, pro-level impact today, and she passed with ease. That's the kind of stripped-down praise you hang on a wall. Steph saw the hits she took. He broke down her film moment by moment. Then he tossed the diplomatic script straight out the window.
I'm sick of watching Caitlin getting attacked. If the league doesn't step up and protect her, things are going to get ugly real fast.
Boom. Straight up. From the guy who redefined the shape of the court itself. That line was equal parts warning and manifesto.
I saw somebody break down the release time, which is pretty much identical to mine. And it hurt just confidence out of you can't help but watch when she plays, where she's shooting from, the range, the confidence, the flair. Like, she's a performer. It's crazy though, just because her shot is like that. It's at that level. If you really watch, like her floor game is as impressive. So it's kind of the total package.
He followed with precision. Same release speed, same limitless range, same flair for the dramatic. Then he dropped the hammer. She's the total package. And Curry doesn't hand out compliments lightly. His nod turned Clay into a legend and Jordan Poole into a millionaire. Calling Clark a kindred spirit? That's legacy-level endorsement. The momentum briefly stalled when Jason Tatum brushed off the WNBA question with a 7-word shrug.
Favorite WNBA player? Asia Wilson.
Respect to Wilson's dominance, but Tatum's silence, his unwillingness to even say Clark's name, felt intentional. Same vibe when Kevin Durant got asked about his favorite female athlete and responded with, Reese is talented, no doubt, but with Clark's record-breaking season, Katie's pick landed like a subtweet made flesh. 2 megastars declining to elevate her echoed the exact tension Paul George hinted at. Not everyone's ready for the new hierarchy. And ironically, that reluctance only magnifies Clark's disruptive force more than any glowing soundbite could. Step back from the opinion avalanche, and the numbers speak volumes. Games moved to NBA arenas, still sold out, TV ratings up 400% from last year, merch flying so fast, Nike can't keep Iowa Gold in stock. Charter flights got greenlit mid-season because watching a generational talent wait at TSA was too surreal for 2025. Corporate sponsors, floodgates wide open, and yes, competitors are feeling the G-force. This curve isn't just steep, it's vertical. Greatness doesn't breed consensus, it splits rooms. Think Jordan, Serena, Tiger, prime LeBron. The WNBA has long pleaded for national relevance. Clark didn't knock, she kicked in the door. Every standing ovation and every cheap shot proved the same truth. Indifference is dead. Sure, the league can fix officiating, marketing, revenue sharing, but you can't manufacture obsession. Clark sparked it instantly. Here's the catch. Turning one rookie into a cultural supernova risks making her both savior and scapegoat. The league has to scale without self-sabotage. Protect her body, spotlight the veterans who laid the groundwork. Tell more than one story. That means faster reviews, a real marketing budget, and charter flights for all, not just the Clark Express. The NBA learned this lesson the hard way during the LeBron fatigue era. The W can take notes now. Steph's compliments matter, but Clark's destiny isn't to become the women's Steph. It's to become the first Caitlin Clark, blending Curry's range, Magic's court vision, and Mahomes' cultural spark. That fusion can't be imitated. It must be forged under a harsher glare than her predecessors ever faced.
Just like that, Kathy Engelbert, the WNBA, the team owners, the Players Association, in the split of an instance, all of it can change. In a split instance, all of it can change. If this injury does anything, it should be a wake-up call to the WNBA, the Players Association, the team owners, that just like that, all this fanfare, all this interest, all this newfound attention on the league can disappear overnight.
The WNBA assumed they could push Caitlin Clark around every night, and fans would simply applaud like it was a middle school halftime show. Well, surprise twist. After Clark took a hard hit like it was Game 7 of the NHL Finals, fans aren't just upset, they're boycotting like it's Black Friday and the referees lost their coupons. The league encouraged physicality, but now it's facing a full-court protest. Who knew the road to equality meant throwing elbows at your MVP's ticket sales? Get ready as we dive straight into this unfolding saga.
It was just announced that Caitlin Clark will be out a minimum of 2 weeks with a quad injury. Could this injury have been prevented? Can the Indiana Fever win without her? And what does this mean for the WNBA?
Oh, the WNBA believed it was heading into a peaceful, drama-free season. How cute. Just when everything looked perfect, ratings climbing, jerseys selling fast, and every Fever game feeling like a Taylor Swift show. Boom. Caitlin Clark's team had different ideas. Now she's sidelined. Fans are reacting like the Earth slipped from its orbit, and the WNBA is quietly scrambling behind the scenes while pretending all is well. It's not.
Get in the back. We know Caitlin Clark was lost yesterday to an injury for at least 2 weeks. Now, the thing about it is they're going to reevaluate in 2 weeks. And of course, man, these teams, I told you earlier, these WNBA franchises that moved games like the Chicago Sky to the, United Arena, you're screwed. You're done. You're cooked. Nobody is going to show up to this thing. Chicago Sky can't sell out their own 9,000-something seat arena like it is. They couldn't when they were kind of decent.
2 weeks. That's how long Clark is sidelined with a strained quadriceps. Not a tear, not a break, but enough to turn the league's story completely around. Her thigh basically clocked out early, and the Fever's star player is now resting on the bench, while the WNBA struggles to keep the spotlight. And the reactions? Oh, they've been anything but subtle. If subtle means a total public meltdown, then yes. Clark's fans, the most passionate merch-wearing Twitter cackalock supporters since the Michael Jordan era, are already organizing emotional walkouts. They've turned a minor injury into a full-blown revolution. I'm done watching until Clark's back. This league isn't worth it without her. Boycott the WNBA. These folks are acting like the league personally slapped their grandma and stole their dog. Meanwhile, every other player is out here saying, hey, we exist too. And the internet's reply? Not now, sweetie.
It's the latter. It could mean that Caitlin Clark could potentially miss the rest of the season. This 2-week timetable that people are running with, that's just when Caitlin Clark is going to be reevaluated. As of now, she will be reevaluated on June 9th. That does not mean, and it's highly unlikely, that June 9th or shortly thereafter is when Caitlin Clark is cleared to return.
And Indiana? Well, they're suddenly realizing what life feels like without their golden goose. The Caitlin Clark show is temporarily off the air. Now, Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell are trying to keep the whole franchise together with duct tape and pure hustle. Mitchell's playing like she's got 3 lungs. Boston's rebounding like she's battling ghosts. And Coach Stephanie White is rewriting game plans like she's in the Hunger Games. Yet somehow, the Fever might actually stay afloat. Why? Because the next few games are against teams that have been about as threatening as lukewarm soup. No offense, Chicago Sky. Okay, maybe a little offense. But let's be real. The most entertaining part of the WNBA isn't the scoreboard, the highlight reels, or even the actual basketball. It's watching the league pretend the party's still on when the life of that party, Caitlin Clark, just got benched. Before her injury, Clark wasn't just in the MVP talk, she was the talk. Sure, some acted like she was a long shot, like she was only good for a rookie, but that's like saying Beyoncé is just okay for a singer. Please. Caitlin wasn't just putting up stats, she was dragging an entire franchise back into the spotlight like a one-woman rescue mission. She had the ratings, the sellouts, the celebrity shoutouts, the screaming fans, and the nosebleeds decked out in homemade jerseys with glitter glue. She didn't just bring excitement, she single-handedly rebooted the WNBA's algorithm. We're talking record-breaking views, arenas that suddenly remembered what full feels like, and merch flying off shelves faster than Taylor Swift tickets. Now, the Queen is temporarily off the board, and everyone's pretending this MVP race is suddenly wide open, like the rest of the league wasn't just orbiting her gravitational pull 5 minutes ago. Cute.
Breaking WNBA news. Caitlin Clark is out for a minimum of 2 weeks with a quad strain, and our next question is, what does this mean for the Fever? So Cece is going to be missing the second Sky rematch since playing them the first weekend of the season, which is definitely a bummer, but on the bright side, this injury doesn't seem too bad, it's just some quad tightness. But fear not, Fever fans. We talked to Caitlin earlier this month, and she doesn't seem too worried about the depth of this roster.
Meanwhile, back in Indiana, the Fever are quietly figuring things out, and they might actually come out stronger. Because without Clark doing literally everything, the rest of the team is stepping up. And when she returns, rested, focused, and absolutely done with all the noise, buckle up. Picture Clark storming back onto the court, draining threes from the parking lot and silencing every doubter who wrote her off after 2 weeks of quad rehab. That's not just a comeback, it's an encore. And here's the real kicker. If the Fever can survive this stretch, stay competitive, maybe even snag a few sneaky wins, they're going to be a serious problem. Because with Clark healthy, Boston confident, and Mitchell fired up, you're looking at a potential playoff spoiler with the momentum of a freight train. So, yes, Caitlin Clark is temporarily injured, but the WNBA is still rolling. Maybe louder than ever, because now, Every storyline is heating up at once. MVP drama, rising stars, fan feuds, conspiracy theories, and Clark's eventual comeback tour.
Just as I started talking about Caitlin Clark being in the MVP race, it is announced that she suffered a left quad injury and she is going to miss at least 2 weeks. And this is such a bummer because the Fever were off to a great start this season. Caitlin Clark was playing out of her mind. She had already broken some records in the first 3 games, and now she's going to be sidelined for 2 weeks. We'll see how the team will hold up without her. Obviously, she's the primary ball handler, playmaker, and shot maker. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully they can sustain and just hold even at 500 or better, and she can get back and keep them in playoff contention.
So to all the fans boycotting the league until their basketball messiah returns, here's a reality check. Without Caitlin, watching the WNBA feels like tuning in after the main act has left the stage. Sure, the league is full of talent, but without her, the spark's missing, the energy's flat, and the drama's lukewarm at best. Go ahead, rage tweet from your Clark-themed beanbag, because the WNBA isn't evolving, it's surviving. And when she's back, it won't just be basketball, it'll be the show we've all been waiting for.
Woo! Man, I gotta tell you, that was close. I thought we were going to get through a season without hearing anything stupid out of Sheryl Swoop's mouth and anything that sounds rather interesting, something that you might choose to give some side-eye to.
The Indiana Fever just dropped a league-shaking bombshell that sent shockwaves through the entire WNBA. In one bold stroke, they released not one, but 2 major rookie names from the team, igniting a frenzy across basketball circles. And as the dust barely began to settle, Sheryl Swoops, longtime president of the anti-Caitlin Clark coalition, re-emerged with the energy of a comeback tour. But this time around, her sights weren't locked solely on Caitlin Clark. She was coming for the entire Fever franchise.
And you have a black player that just got cut, and Sheryl Swoops is not happy about that.
What began as a routine roster adjustment spiraled into full-fledged league drama, packed with tension and headlines that practically wrote themselves. Just when we assumed Swoops had vanished into the void, she somehow pops back up out of nowhere. What's she saying now? And how is the Indiana Fever handling all this chaos? Drop your thoughts in the comments.
Call me nuts, but unfortunately for the old WNBA fandom and media, in her case, media and old players, unfortunately, in some cases, you do feel like there is something else lurking behind said opinions that may not be basketball related. Let's put it that way.
Let's kick things off with the roster cuts that turned heads. The Indiana Fever just made one of the boldest preseason decisions we've seen in years. Bree Hall, yes, that Bree Hall, the dynamic guard and 2-time national champ from South Carolina, was cut before she could even hit the floor for real minutes. That's right, not 1 second of action in the opener against Washington. Barely any time against Brazil. And just like that, she was out. And if that felt like a shock to the system, brace yourself. Because the Fever weren't finished.
Bree Hall is now gone, as you know. And today it was announced that Yvonne Ejim has been waived by the Fever as well. Sophie Cunningham talked about that yesterday, saying you can latch on to another team, another place.
Just because you didn't make a roster doesn't mean you're out of the W forever.
Roughly 24 hours later, the team dropped another bomb. Yvonne Ejim, Gonzaga's scoring powerhouse and a player with enough heart to light up the entire Pacific Northwest, was cut too. 2 rookies, each with standout college careers and genuine upside, were shown the door before they even had a chance to settle in. Barely a warm-up, and they were out. Just like that. This is pro sports at its most ruthless. It's not always about talent. It's timing, system fit, and sometimes just cold roster math, where dreams collide with the business side of basketball.
So the Indiana Fever, as expected, have waived Yvonne Ejim. She's just not at the level that the Indiana Fever are hoping her to be at.
The Fever announced it directly. Thank you, Yvonne Ejim, who was the all-time leading scorer in Gonzaga history.
Naturally, the big question is, why these 2? To grasp the sting, you have to look at the Fever's salary cap situation. Thanks to Katie Lou Sampson's oversized contract, which the Fever had to buy out in order to sign key vets, the team could only carry 11 players on the roster. Veterans like Natasha Howard, DeWanna Bonner, Sydney Colson, Bree Turner, Sophie Cunningham, Damaris Dantas, and recently re-signed Kelsey Mitchell all have guaranteed contracts for at least a year. Cutting them wouldn't free up space. It would just leave their salaries on the books. The only contracts the team could actually shed were those of rookies still on their original deals: Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and Lexi Hull. And no team in their right mind would cut that trio, which means 10 of 11 spots were already locked in.
Man, it's hard, right? We all reached out. I think that they brought really good people in, great people into training camp this year. But just because you didn't make this squad, this is probably one of the harder rosters to make in the W this year. It doesn't mean you're out of the W, and you just got to keep ready, keep playing, keep grinding it out. And if it's hard to make the league. I know Sid and I, we were second rounders. We stuck. Her experience is a little bit different than mine, but just because you didn't make a roster doesn't mean you're out of the W forever.
In truth, all three rookies, including Michaela Timpson, who's been flashing real potential in training camp and preseason, were battling for just one available spot. And odds are, that spot is going to Timpson. The Fever need young forwards in the mix, and her speed, floor running ability, and elite defense make her a perfect fit. Fans are already calling her the steal of the draft, snagged at 19th overall when many had her projected comfortably inside the top 10.
Michaela Timpson is obviously at a certain level. She's a rim runner. She just obviously has a higher ceiling than Ejim at the moment, and this is maybe a hot take.
For fans of Hall and Ejim, this one stings on a deeper level. It wasn't just about stats or performance, it was the unforgiving collision of salary constraints, tight roster limits, and the relentless push toward a championship window. These cuts hit hard because they weren't just about players. They were about potential, about belief. And in a blink, two promising dreams were put on pause.
After all, we saw Cheryl Swoops in rare form, hating on Caitlin Clark all last year. Well, maybe she has figured out, hating on Clark, I've been told that's not really a great idea. Yada, yada, yada. So, what other white girls can I tune up from the Indiana Fever?
Unsurprisingly, the backlash came fast, and front and center with a megaphone was none other than Cheryl Swoops. The second news broke about Bree Hall's cut, Swoops lit up like she'd been waiting all offseason for a moment just like this. Her return wasn't subtle. It was a full-blown verbal takedown.
Okay, example. The Washington Mystics Indiana Fever game. Because I know on social media, people were like, well, why aren't the starters in for the Mystics? They could win this game. And I was there, right? Because preseason is about, yes, you're going to play your starters. You're going to play your players. Typically, they don't even play that many minutes, right? Because you have so many players on your roster that you got to make roster cuts. So you're still trying to figure out who can fit what we're doing.
On the latest episode of the Women's Hoop Show, Swoops didn't just voice concern. She unleashed a one-woman verbal offensive, zeroing in on head coach Stephanie White. According to Swoops, White didn't just mismanage the rotations, she outright sabotaged them. Her question was sharp. Why was Bree Hall glued to the bench while players with less upside were getting the spotlight?
But I did have a question, though, with Indiana, right? Because even though the starters weren't in, like Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull they've been in the league for a while. You actually had players who, like Bree Hall, why wasn't she in that game per se? If you're still trying to figure out who's going to make the team, who you're going to cut. So I was a little confused with what Steph was doing.
If you're still deciding who to cut, why wasn't Bree Hall even on the floor? She pressed. And if that jab wasn't sharp enough, the unspoken message rang even louder. This wasn't just about coaching strategy, it was about who gets grace, who's given a real shot, and who gets pushed aside before they've even had a chance. And if you thought Swoops would stop there, not a chance. She cranked the pressure higher, zeroing in on the two players who did benefit from White's rotation decisions: Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull. With pointed precision, Swoops didn't just question their roles, she dissected them. And the way she framed it? Let's just say the message echoed loud and clear across every corner of WNBA Twitter.
Okay. This is gonna be a spicy season, cause Kiki was like, "What, Sophie? Girl, don't come over here." Sophie was like,
already,
I was
game
here
one.
Here for it. But the fact that that's a rookie, right?
I know.
Kiki,
She did not back down.
But she just turned and laughed. She was like, "What? What did you say? What are we doing?"
And then came the line that made her angle crystal clear. With heavy sarcasm, Swoops remarked that maybe it was time to start tuning up the other white girls on the Fever, now that she'd been told to lay off Clark. That wasn't subtle. That wasn't shade. That was a spotlight and a narrative bomb detonated right in the center of the conversation.
My goodness, I mean, we've had 2 preseason games. 2! And we're back to it. We're back here. She's criticizing Stephanie White. I bet Cheryl Swoops hates that last name. Criticizing Stephanie White. And, of course, it relates to Lexi Hall and Sophie Cunningham. Ooh, I bet Cheryl Swoops hates her some Sophie Cunningham. You know she does.
Let's not forget, this isn't Swoops' first anti-Clark rodeo. Long before Caitlin Clark ever suited up in a WNBA jersey, Swoops was already raising eyebrows. She was one of the earliest, loudest voices to question nearly every facet of Clark's game. The records? Overhyped. The style? Too flashy. The swagger? Not earned. The leadership? Dubious. The age? The attitude? The media attention? Swoops scrutinized it all. Practically everything short of Clark's shoe size. She made it clear from the jump that she wasn't buying the hype. And now that Clark isn't just a top draft pick, but the face of the Indiana Fever and a global fan favorite, Swoops hasn't exactly softened her stance. On the contrary, she's expanded the battlefield. It's no longer just about Clark. Swoops has shifted her focus to the entire perimeter, calling out the system that elevated Clark and questioning the structure that surrounds her. From coaching decisions to roster selections, she's aiming broader, louder, and sharper than ever before.
In terms of the fourth quarter, they had all but one of their buckets was inside the paint. Was that them just being able to get into the paint and get whatever they want because of that point of attack defense like you were talking about?
Yeah, they had that and 9 free throws.
The Indiana Fever were on fire. They steamrolled Paige Beckers and the Dallas Wings. They outclassed the Minnesota Lynx to claim their first Commissioner's Cup title. They obliterated Aja Wilson and the Las Vegas Aces. 3 wins in a row. The hype was real. Everyone assumed they'd cruise past the Los Angeles Sparks, even without Caitlin Clark. The Sparks are arguably one of the weakest teams in the WNBA, but what followed was infuriating. The officiating was so atrocious that Stephanie White could only utter 5 words that exposed everything broken in this league.
We should have won this game. There was inconsistencies in the officiating. Wait until you see the second half, and I have everything.
The Fever entered this game without their brightest star, but no one saw what was coming. Caitlin Clark was out with a left groin injury. It was her 5th consecutive game on the sidelines. The team's whole offensive rhythm hinges on Clark's ability to create plays. Without her passing instincts and scoring danger, the Fever transformed into an entirely different squad.
Finding out this morning that we probably need to hold out again today. It really is a day-to-day thing. And I think for us, making sure that we're prioritizing her long-term health and wellness. It's anybody who's had some of these types of injuries understand that sometimes it's a process. She's a quick healer and she's been doing everything that she can to get back on the floor. So, we just want to make sure that we're hypersensitive to the big picture.
But that wasn't the end of it. Damiris Dantas was away representing her country in the FIBA AmeriCup. Her absence forced the Fever to reshuffle their rotations. They lost a vital contributor who offered both size and veteran presence off the bench. Then came the bombshell. DeWanna Bonner had quit the team entirely. 3 critical pieces gone in one brutal stretch. Now here's where things got wild. Even with all those setbacks, the Fever were still overwhelming favorites. ESPN's matchup predictor gave them a 72.9% chance to win. MGM had them favored by 6.5 points. Everyone believed their remaining firepower would be more than enough. It made sense. The Sparks are undeniably one of the WNBA's worst teams. They've struggled from the start. The Fever were fresh off an epic 3-game win streak. Aaliyah Boston was on fire. Kelsey Mitchell was emerging as a true leader. The team's chemistry looked rock solid during those dominant wins.
Howard looking backdoor for Mitchell. Not there. Shot clock down to 7. McDonald feed inside, and it's Howard for 2.
It's good record.
But something was simmering under the surface. Without Clark, the Fever's pace had dropped off a cliff. The ball wasn't zipping around with the same intensity. Boston wasn't seeing enough touches to take over in the paint the way she's capable of. The offensive rhythm that thrived under Clark's direction began to unravel. Sure, the Fever still had multiple players with all-star potential. Meanwhile, the Sparks were barely staying afloat on most nights. How on earth could Indiana lose this game?
I don't get it. Breanna Stewart, Aja Wilson, wait until you see what they did for Kelsey Plum tonight. They get all the calls. Touch fouls, anything. And guess what happens? Aaliyah Boston, the best center in the game, and guess what happens to her? She gets called for every touch foul and ends up in foul trouble this entire season and is still putting up MVP type numbers. What happens with Caitlin Clark? Have you ever seen her get a touch foul? Phantom call? No. The physicality, that's the WNBA when it comes to Caitlin Clark. But anybody else, the physicality disappears. And it's foul after foul.
The expectations couldn't have been higher. Everyone assumed sheer talent would make up for the missing pieces. The Fever had already shown they could win when it mattered. They still had championship-caliber players on the floor. The Sparks were expected to be easy pickings for a team with Indiana's remaining arsenal. But this perfect storm of absences set the stage for a meltdown. The chemistry that had looked so tight during their win streak was anchored by Clark's leadership. Without her orchestrating the offense, the cracks began to appear. Role players who thrived in clear roles were suddenly asked to do too much. The pressure mounted fast as the game opened, with all these setbacks dragging them down.
What does it take to get a team to be more consistent, especially from you on the coaching side of things?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple things. There's always got to be a high attention to knowing personnel. Oftentimes you don't get a lot of practice time, and so going over a lot of their sets, which you do, but at the end of the day, making sure we know our personnel, who we're going to run off the three-point line, what we're willing to give up. We've got to make sure that there's a high attention to detail there.
Even with the team stumbling, 3 players flat out refused to let the Fever collapse without a battle. Aaliyah Boston was an absolute force in the paint from start to finish. She racked up 23 points and 12 rebounds in a performance worthy of a win. Boston hit 9 of her 17 shots and sank 5 of 7 from the line. When it mattered most, she finally got the ball and reminded everyone why she's such a dominant, one-of-a-kind talent.
Here's Mitchell off the screen, but can't connect on the 3. Boston offensive rebound, rolls it in and a foul. The 2 bigs bring the ball up the floor, and Hamby wasn't ready for that.
How about that change of pace? That burst like a guard gets downhill to the rim.
Kelsey Mitchell rose to the occasion in Clark's absence. She poured in 19 points and drilled 3 clutch three-pointers when the team was starving for offense. Mitchell also hit a major career milestone, appearing in her 251st game for the Fever, second only to Tamika Catchings in franchise history. Her leadership was on full display all night, keeping Indiana in the fight against a team they were expected to beat handily.
Lob inside. Boston too far underneath. Shot clock down to 5. Kick out Mitchell. Oh, yes!
But there was more. Natasha Howard brought her veteran savvy and completely torched the scoreboard. She racked up 21 points and 9 rebounds, nearly securing a double-double. Howard was lights out, hitting 8 of 11 from the floor, including 1 of 2 from deep. She sank 4 of 6 free throws and delivered critical buckets on both ends of the floor when the team needed them most.
Busted them all up. We went to the same high school.
Howard left alone, answers with a 3.
These 3 players shouldered the entire team, delivering championship-caliber numbers against a squad expected to crumble under pressure. Boston ruled the paint like the true all-star she is. Mitchell drained clutch shots that kept the Fever within reach. Howard's seasoned instincts sparked plays younger players simply can't pull off. Imagine this: Boston dominating inside, Mitchell sinking shots from all over, and Howard orchestrating veteran moves that kept hope alive. The comeback was within grasp. The crowd could feel it, momentum swinging unmistakably toward Indiana.
Caitlin Clark, she declined an invitation to participate in a special challenge during NBA All-Star Weekend next month. That's what Shams reported on Wednesday. Now, Clark's representatives, they expressed her desire to have her first three-point contest be at the WNBA All-Star in Indianapolis this summer. Shanae, I'm not mad at it. What do you make of this decision?
Look, I not only respect it, I absolutely wholeheartedly support.
Well, it's official, you guys. Caitlin Clark is not competing in the three-point contest at NBA All-Star.
What happens when the biggest star in women's basketball says no to the NBA? Caitlin Clark, a record-breaking force and trailblazer on the court, just did exactly that. In a move that's sparking controversy and shaking up sports media, Clark turned down an invitation to join the NBA's three-point contest at All-Star Weekend. Rather than stepping into the spotlight as the NBA's special attraction, she's making a bold statement about where true recognition belongs. Stay tuned as we dive into how this decision is flipping the script and what it means for the future of the WNBA.
Caitlin Clark knows how to use the word that many people struggle all their lives being able to use. Some of us never get it till we're old and just don't care no more. The word, take a guess. Take a guess.
Controversy, debate, and, of course, ESPN's outrage. Caitlin Clark, the beacon of the WNBA's future, has just declined an invitation to participate in the NBA's three-point contest at All-Star Weekend.
Well, it has just been confirmed from Shams that Caitlin Clark will not be competing in the NBA three-point contest. Indiana Fever star Caitlin Clark will not participate in the NBA All-Star Special three-point shootout in San Francisco and wants her first three-point contest to be at WNBA All-Star in Indianapolis this summer. Her representatives at Excel Sports.
Rather than celebrating her choice, the sports media exploded into chaos. Some argue she's simply dodging the competition, while others believe she's boldly championing the WNBA. So what's the true story behind her decision, and why is ESPN so incensed? Stick around because we're unpacking every detail right now. All right, let's jump in. The Caitlin Clark saga has been dominating headlines nonstop. In case you haven't caught wind of it, Caitlin Clark, the undeniable superstar of women's basketball, recently declined an invitation to compete in the NBA's three-point contest during this year's All-Star Weekend. And wow, opinions are flying everywhere. From ESPN to NBA fans and WNBA supporters, everyone is weighing in as the debate continues to heat up.
The momentum that Caitlin Clark has this season, with her being close to being the face of basketball, both men's and women's this year, I just thought it was the perfect stage. And then obviously, you know, the possibility of Steph Curry and Klay Thompson teaming up once again back in Golden State and doing that home reunion thing, and then having Sabrina and Caitlin. To me, it just sounded like so much fun, and it would definitely bring a little spark to NBA All-Star that NBA NBA All-Star, unfortunately, hasn't.
Let's be honest. Caitlin Clark is the biggest name in women's basketball right now. She's more than just a player. She's a phenomenon. Every time she steps onto the court, she shatters records, fills arenas, and pulls in huge TV audiences. So when she decided to pass on the NBA's invitation, it wasn't just a scheduling conflict, it was a powerful statement, one that clearly caught ESPN and many sports analysts off guard. So what prompted her to make this call? Is she intimidated by the competition? Did she miscalculate? Or is she strategically setting the stage for the future, making a power move that still has many scratching their heads?
Is another testament to where she is in the hierarchy of the sports food chain and, the ladder of power and influence. Because Caitlin Clark is Steph Curry and LeBron James. Like, she's, there's no difference. A great philosopher once said there's levels to this. She's on that.
Here's the reality about Caitlin Clark. She knows exactly what she's worth. She's not just some player thrilled to get an invite to a high-profile event. She understands that wherever she goes, the cameras roll, the money flows, and the fans rally. So when the opportunity to participate in an NBA event came along, she didn't jump at it like a rookie trying to prove herself. Instead, she made it clear, "Thanks, but I'll pass. I'll host my first three-point contest on my own terms, in my own league."
You see Caitlin Clark using her power to benefit the WNBA, saying, not that she'd never do anything with the NBA, but that she's not going to do it this time because the first time should be with the WNBA in front of the Fever fans.
And that's exactly what's setting off a firestorm of reactions. For years, women's basketball players have been fighting tooth and nail for recognition, respect, and financial support. The WNBA has long been cast in the shadow of the NBA, and whenever a female athlete earns a smidgen of mainstream acclaim, there's this lingering expectation that she should be grateful for even the smallest scraps of attention from the men's league. But Caitlin Clark isn't subscribing to that narrative, she's rewriting it. She made it abundantly clear that she wants her inaugural three-point contest to take place at the WNBA All-Star Game, right in front of her hometown fans in Indiana. And let's be real, that's a savvy move. Why settle for being the NBA's special guest when she can be the headliner of her own show? Why help prop up the NBA's All-Star Weekend ratings when she can shine the spotlight on the WNBA instead? Of course, not everyone is on board with her decision. The moment she turned down the offer, sports analysts went into overdrive. ESPN pundits began to debate whether she was making a grave error, questioning her judgment, while the usual skeptics claimed she was merely dodging competition. Dodging competition? Come on. Caitlin Clark has never shied away from a challenge. She's been demolishing defenses and shattering records her entire career. If she really wanted to join the NBA's three-point contest, she'd be more than capable of holding her own. But that's precisely the point. She refused because she knows her worth, and she refuses to let others call the shots for her. Stephen A. Smith, as per usual, had a lot to say on the matter. For once, he actually backed Clark's decision, though not without throwing in some of his trademark commentary. He noted that last year's WNBA All-Star Game smashed records by drawing in 3.4 million viewers, while the NBA's All-Star Game struggled to hit numbers anywhere near its former glory. The NBA's All-Star Weekend has been losing its luster, no secret there, and it's obvious they were banking on Caitlin Clark to give them a ratings boost. Let's break that down for a moment. The NBA isn't exactly at its prime during All-Star Weekend. The dunk contest has lost its charm, and even the All-Star Game itself is treated more like a casual exhibition than a true contest. Viewership has been on a steady decline, and the overall energy just isn't what it used to be. So when Caitlin Clark enters the picture, a player who's been single-handedly driving TV ratings through the roof and filling arenas, it's clear the NBA saw a golden opportunity. and frankly, from their standpoint, it made total sense. Imagine the buzz. Caitlin Clark going head-to-head with the NBA's best in a three-point contest. The intrigue alone would pull in millions of viewers. But that's exactly why she declined. She recognized that she was being positioned merely as a ratings tool, and she wasn't about to let that happen. Let's not kid ourselves. If she had accepted, the aftermath would have been just as contentious, albeit for different reasons. A win might have been dismissed as merely a shooting contest, not genuine competition. A loss would have fueled claims that the WNBA just can't compare to the NBA. There was no scenario in which she could emerge unscathed in that setup. Instead, she delivered a bold message. The WNBA matters. She's not a novelty act or a side attraction for the NBA's All-Star Weekend. She's the star of her own league. This move might just be one of the most significant power plays we've seen from a women's basketball player in a long time. It's not about avoiding one contest. It's about transforming the narrative around the WNBA. For too long, critics have argued that women's sports depend on the men's leagues to survive, that without the NBA's support, the WNBA couldn't flourish. But Caitlin Clark is proving that theory wrong. She's driving ticket sales, setting new records, and making women's basketball a must-watch spectacle all on its own. Consider this. Just last year, the WNBA saw a surge in both viewership and merchandise sales. The Indiana Fever, the team Clark plays for, accounted for nearly half of the league's entire broadcast value. Half. That's a staggering figure, and it's all thanks to her influence. She's demonstrating that the WNBA doesn't need to rely on the NBA's leftovers to thrive. It can stand tall with its own stars, its own storylines, and its own dedicated fan base. That's why this decision is so monumental. She's setting a new standard. She's telling the next generation of female athletes, you don't have to latch onto the men's league for validation. You can be the main event in your own right. And the impact is already evident. What began as a decision over a three-point contest has blossomed into a full-blown conversation about the future of women's basketball. That's the magnitude of her influence. So yes, ESPN might be seething, the NBA might feel let down, and some fans might be left scratching their heads. But Caitlin Clark is in complete control of her narrative. She's playing the long game, building something far bigger than a single contest. And honestly, you have to respect that.